Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads.
Hey, how's it going out there, everybody? Welcome to the Drum Shuffle. Jamie Eads joining you as I do every single week. This is episode 84. I hope everybody is having a great week out there. We're having a great week over here at the Drum Shuffle World headquarters. We've got a very special episode for you today. We are going to be rejoined for a second time by Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Doug Cosmo Clifford, famously from the band Creedence Clearwater Revival, right after this message from our sponsor, Los Cabos Drumsticks. The best kept secret for drummers is finally out. Los Cabos Drumsticks may look like the sticks you grew up with, but these are not your father's drumsticks. Los Cabos Drumsticks is Canada's #1 drumstick brand, and they are coming to a retailer near you. With operations in over 28 countries worldwide, thousands of drummers have already discovered the Los Cabos difference. Using FSC certified wood from Canada and the US, Los Cabos make the finest quality drumsticks, percussion tools, and accessories on the market. The best news, Los Cabos Drumsticks offers you a ton of choice. They have 22 individual drumstick models and 14 percussion tools, many of which are available in 3 different wood types: maple, white hickory, and red hickory. Red hickory comes from the center or heart of the hickory tree and has been independently proven to be both stronger and more elastic than white hickory without adding a lot of weight. While most drumstick manufacturers have shunned red hickory, Los Cabos Drumsticks has embraced it, becoming the only established stick brand in the world to offer a full line of red hickory drumsticks. To learn more about Los Cabos Drumsticks, visit them online at loscabosdrumsticks.com, follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and don't forget to ask for Los Cabos Drumsticks at your favorite retailer. Dare to be different. Join the Red Hickory Revolution with Los Cabos Drumsticks. All right, guys and girls, all the way back on episode 14 of the Drum Shuffle, we were joined by Doug Clifford of Creedence Clearwater Revival and Creedence Clearwater Revisited. Back when I was just a young podcaster, didn't really know what I was doing, but that's okay. I still don't. But we talked with Doug, heard all about his wonderful history with CCR, and we invited him to come back and kind of do a career retrospective. And this is so timely because earlier this year, Creedence Clearwater Revisited announced that they were going to retire from touring. So we wanted to get Doug back to just kind of look back through his career. And we had just a wonderful conversation about that. And I'm here to tell you folks right now, there is just not a more genuine or kind man in the business than Doug Clifford. I am very pleased to call him my friend, and we have started up just a wonderful budding friendship. And it's my honor to have him back on the show because this is a guy that was just such an influence on me and so many other drummers. So please help me welcome back to the Drum Shuffle, Doug Cosmo Clifford. Hey, good morning, Doug. How are you today?
I'm pretty darn good.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Hey, thank you so much for coming back on the Drum Shuffle. We really do appreciate it. I think it's been just a little bit over a year since we last had you here, and we talked about doing this kind of follow-up interview. So thanks for taking the time to do it.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, I think this is a little bit timely. Creedence Clearwater Revisited, you guys have been playing for, 20-something years. I think you guys started that project in the 90s. And, it was announced earlier this year in, 2019 that this would be the last year that you guys toured. And we're nearing the end of 2019. And it looks like you all have a handful of shows. I think most of them are out of the U.S. Talk to me a little bit about the legacy of Creedence Clearwater Revisited and, why you and Stu have kind of decided to wrap it up at this point.
Well, we started the project in '95, and so we're depending on how you read calendars, 25 years of touring nonstop with Revisited. The way it happened was Stu was living in L.A. I live up in the mountains, still do. There's a lot of snow out there right now. So, it's very white right now. So anyway, he was going to move back to the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's just and he was moving from L.A. So he was in the burbs and traffic and just, I'm up here at that time living at Lake Tahoe, looking out at the beautiful lake. I could see 60 miles in any direction. And I thought, before you make this move, bring you and your family up to my house and stay for a week. He'd never been up there, so he did. And at the end of the week, he was buying a house.
That's awesome.
So he bought his house and he moved in, of course. And I had a nice studio in my house, and we're jamming in there with bass and drums. And God bless us in the trenches. We do what we do, but a guitar or a vocal here and there wouldn't be too bad.
Right.
Bass and drums. So anyway, we said what would the best thing for us be? It's where we could really enjoy ourselves and maybe have some fans out there. So we figured it out, and of course at that point we had to get the right personnel. So that was critical, whether we were going to go forward or not. If we couldn't get exactly what we needed and what the project deserved, we would do something else. So I would learn the ukulele probably. Anyway, so we started. We didn't take out ads in Variety or anything like that. We just contacted friends in the business and told them what the plan was, and did they know anyone that might be a puzzle piece for that part of the puzzle. And so Stu had met Elliot Easton down in L.A., and Elliot was a huge Creedence fan. He found out at that time when he was like 15 years old and learning to play guitar. Creedence was in its heyday, and he was hooked on Creedence. So a big part of his learning and his personality as far as a musician goes. So that was a no-brainer. We had Elliot in, he was in, and then Steve Gunner, who is still with us. He's a lifer. He's the multi-instrumentalist. Was I believe I don't know if he was at Elliot's house or not, but anyway, we chatted with him, and he had the credentials and certainly the enthusiasm that we were looking for. So that left the vocal. That was a real tough one. So what we did was we there were 10 candidates originally, and the criteria was to put a cassette down. This tells you, we're back in the 90s. Put a cassette down with, these songs on it, 4 songs. I forget what the songs were. I think Cool Stop the Rain was in there. for sure. But anyway, so we got the 10 tapes back, and 4 survived that part of the test. And so then we flew them down to L.A., where we were practicing and working the band out. And we had John Tristeo. I'm a little ahead of myself. We liked what we heard from 2 of the 4 guys, I believe, something like that, and we wanted them to send another tape down with nothing, no echo, no reverb, no help.
Yeah, dry vocal, right?
And an acoustic guitar. So we did, and so we were pretty much down to John Tristeo, and his actual audition. We really liked what we heard, and we said, "Hey, but you want to be the guy?" And he said, "Oh, would I?" So there we were. We had the band intact, but we didn't have any gigs. We didn't know if we'd be accepted by the public. Without John Fogerty, we had the rights of the name of Creedence Clearwater Revival, but we, in fairness to everyone on the project, and especially for the fans, we said, "No, we can't really do that." So Danny Zelisko, a promoter in the Phoenix area, old friend, said, "I've got an idea, and come over, and we'll chat about it." So we did, and he came up with the idea of Creedence Clearwater Revisited. We revisit the music of Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Right.
And at first we're kind of going, well, I don't know, But then the more we thought about it, it's a true definition of what we had in mind, and we had got the Creedence Clearwater part in there. So there we were, and so we thought we would be doing corporate type stuff, maybe 4 or 5 gigs a month, just to keep our feet wet and get out of the house a little bit. So lo and behold, one of John Tristeo's friends, a principal at a grammar school in the area where he lived, up in Washington State, wanted to get into the concert business. So we said, "Well, good luck, but if you really want to hire us, we'll do it." So we played 2 dates, one on Coeur d'Alene and another one in the state of Washington, and it went over terrific. It was, the fans loved it, and we're actually, I had heard it on a very regular basis. I never saw you guys live. It would have been great to be able to do that, and if we could do that now, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So we're hearing those types of rumblings. But I was always wondering if a tomato might be coming my way from the audience. We didn't know. We had no idea. So then we did some more dates. I think we did the Greek Theater in L.A. and some other dates, and of course, the more we played as a band in front of an audience, the more we felt that we had really made the right decision, not only with the idea of doing it, but with the players that we had selected. So it was pretty exciting at that point. And then here we are now, 25 years later. Boom! I mean, it's just where'd the time go?
Right. Well, and
time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys, this hasn't been like a band that does, 10 gigs a year. You guys have been doing, 50, 60, 70, some years 100 gigs in a year. So, I mean, it was a full-time job, right?
Yeah, well, it was a full-time job, no question about it. And, the first real full year that we had, we did something like 108 gigs.
Wow. I mean,
my wife was going, "Wow, didn't expect this."
Well, I think famously, somebody asked me after your first episode that you did with us, they were like, well, yeah, but I mean, John Fogerty's out there doing CCR stuff, so they're kind of competing. And I said, well, you have to remember when Stu and Doug started Creedence Clearwater Revisited, John at that time was refusing to play Creedence music. He just had no interest in doing it whatsoever. So there was, two whole generations of fans that had never seen that music performed live anywhere.
That's correct.
So, I mean, I think you were giving the folks what they certainly wanted, and you filled a gap that was there for the catalog of the Creedence music.
Well, it was something that was very exciting. I'll tell you that from our perspective, going, so far so good, and actually much better than we had expected to be received by our fans, new and old, and it was we were on our way and really enjoying it, and very, very thankful that Stewie bought the house when he did, and things were going our way. So
yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about the songs of Creedence. And I've said to you countless times now, the way in which you guys put out that catalog of music, I don't think could ever be repeated. Certainly not in the modern times. But and I recited these stats to you last time, so I'm not trying to bore you, but you guys had 7 records that you put out in the span of about 3 3/4 years. Okay, so it wasn't quite 4 years. 7 records. 6 of which were certified platinum or multi-platinum, and the other one was gold. So,
right.
To have that much output in that short a period of time, how much of that can anybody really remember and recall, first of all? I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, John Fogerty's methodology was that if we were ever off the charts, we would be forgotten. And he was serious. I don't know anybody who is at the level that we have achieved finally after 10 years. Would believe that. All of our peers have time in between when they're not on the charts.
Yeah.
But when people are anxiously awaiting their next release, and when that happens, boom, there goes the big machine for all the major bands, most of the major bands. Let's put it that way. So in 1969, what did we do? We put out 3 albums, and that's a busy time, and we toured behind each one of them. That was another part of it. And in that melee of touring, we had one gig that stands out, of course, and that was Woodstock.
We talked about that one last time. And that's, I just, I don't mean to sound so incredulous, but I'm still just amazed at the level of output. And when you say 7 albums, I think that might mean something different to different people, but these weren't records that had, one single on them and everything else was a throwaway track. I mean, these are, you're putting out 3, 4, 5 singles from each record, and they all charted. I mean, I think anybody that tried to live in that type of compressed time schedule on releases now is bound to put out a bunch of, boogers, right? I mean, there's going to be songs that aren't good. Talk to me a little bit about, that whirlwind? I mean, you did a little bit, but I mean, did you guys ever sleep? I mean, it just seems crazy to me.
Well, we got I had a cot in my studio, so I needed to lay down. I think I got 45 minutes here. Well, of course, it puts a lot of pressure on, but we were a very disciplined band, and we had a pact actually that we made at the Fillmore Auditorium: no drugs, no alcohol during work hours, and that meant every day because we would get together and we would do something, whether it be jamming or rehearsing, looking for songs, finding the songs that we wanted to be the next album, and working on those songs to get them to where they passed muster. How about that?
Yeah, for sure.
But that's how we did it. And when we went into the studio, unlike every other band that I knew, they would go in with 15, 16 songs and pick the best 10 out of them. We had the songs. We had decided what was going to be on each album. So when we went into the studio, the songs we were going to lay down were going to be the album. There was not going to be anything left over for the record company to sort of use, because why would our question to them would be, why would you want something that was rejected?
Right. Well,
because it has our name on it and they can make money on it. That's it. But it had to be it had to be what the plan was. So everything was planned out and really well rehearsed. When we went into the studio, we had more number one takes than any band I know of. And then of course, let's see if we can top it. And of course, we couldn't top it. And part of that was, we had been working with those songs for, a period of time, and we were ready to move on to the next group of songs. We didn't have them yet, but we were ready to move on to them. So when we got into the studio, we knew there was no guesswork, no surprises. We went in and laid them down exactly the way we had planned to, and that's what you got.
Yeah. Well, and last time you were here, we kind of talked a little bit about the recording process, and you said, most of this stuff was cut live on the floor, which
right.
is, that's another amazing thing to me. That's almost unheard of in modern times, is for a band to record live together. I mean, what a novel concept. But, you guys were going into the studio, and I mean, I just to put this in perspective, you guys were a live band before the record deal, and you all played marathon shows every night before you started the recording part of your career. How many of the later songs that came on the later albums were around in some other form in the early days, or did all these songs just kind of come between records, so to speak?
Well, I think they came between records. There would be times when we would release a single that was going to be on the next album. But we hadn't started recording the rest of the album. We recorded the single. As we said, we need a bridge. We don't want him to be off the charts, be forgotten. So there are a couple of times we did record a single that was going to be on the next album, but just to have a song out there that was charting on the radio, and that's how we were able to do it. Again, it's an interesting process. So but it, in the end, it worked. But the problem that we had, and it really just added fuel to the fire. I call this the Roman candle of rock and roll. And when we put a single out, it wasn't a single; it was two singles, because we had 5 double-sided hits. Yeah, 5 of them. So that's, cut that period, cut that in half, and what a terrible curse, right? Everything you put out's a freaking hit.
Yeah. Well, I think that leads me to my next question that I'm a little curious about. So, I mean, you guys were always in writing mode. So you release a record, you go out to tour behind that record. And presumably, you're working on songs at sound check or whatever the case may be. Did you ever have a moment where you were like, this song is going to go nowhere, and then much to your surprise, it was another hit? I mean, or did you know immediately every time, hey, we're on to something here?
Well, no, you're right. Down on the Corner, I really, it's a calypso song, and when we figured it into the mix for the next record, I said, that's kind of a weird concept, don't you think? I mean, it's not rock and roll, and so that was the one that I worked the hardest on. We would take notes on little cassette machines. I think I mentioned this on the last interview, and put it on the floor. And there was a little compressor in it, so I could hear all the parts that everyone was playing. And I would, as we would go along, and there was something that I needed to work on, I'd say, let's lay down what we have, and then discuss a little bit if it was something that I was struggling with, and I was struggling with Down on the Corner. So finally, I thought, it's actually kind of cool. Once I got into it, I went in with not yelling and screaming, of course, but just wondering, how is this going to play out? And once I figured out the part, I went, I like this part.
Yeah, right.
I could see during the limbo behind the song.
Yeah. Well, it turned out, the song that you struggled with, it turned out to be a number 3 single in the United States. So not bad.
No, I'll take it.
I mean, it just, look, obviously I'm a fan of the music, and, I've played in, I don't know how many different cover bands, and there's always at least 1 or 2 Creedence songs that all, bar cover bands play. And you bring something to those songs that, I think a lot of people think, well, it's a Creedence song. It's going to be in 4/4. It's probably not going to be real tough to play, but the feel of these things, like, I don't care what anybody says. If you're playing Fortunate Son, Doug Cosmo Clifford has a different straight ahead feel than most guys, right?
Yeah. No question about it. That's funny you mentioned that. Our production manager sent me one of his favorite bands named Clutch.
Oh yeah,
those guys are not.
Yeah, they do a great cover of Fortunate Son.
They did it. Well, he sent me the cover just yesterday, I believe. And the guy, he's playing along, but there are fills in there that are critical to each part. They're sort of in the same vein, but I mix them up a little bit, and they're there to move the song from point A to point B to point C and back, and whatever order it is. But those fills are critical, and it's funny, guys will play I don't know what kind of loungy stuff, I suppose. I don't know where these fills come from, but a lot of people are playing the same fill for just about everything. So, you wonder, but a lot of care and time was spent. As simple as it might be, that was kind of the key to it. Sometimes it's right. It's just to me, it's so obvious. A lot of the times, the first time I hear the song, I'll play a fill, and that's the neighborhood that I want to be in when I figure the song out completely. But those are. Less is best is a cliche, of course, but there's a lot to that. But then there's the other side of it, more of less.
Yeah,
and that's kind of when you come upon something that it really works. Keep that in your file. There might be a song down the road that will have similar qualities, and you can take that fill and kind of dissect it a little bit and don't throw it away. There's value there. It's not going to be the same fill that you played originally, but it's going to be the same feel, as you mentioned, which is the key word. That's what I am. I'm not a guy with a lot of chops. I'm a guy that learned to play drums listening to top 40 radio. So all the records that I was listening to, the songs I was listening to, the bands were hit makers, and you just do, then it becomes natural, to come up with the things that move the song. And it may not even be what you heard originally when you were 13, 14 years old and using your school books and a couple of pencils while you're doing homework.
Right. Yeah.
I might have gotten a C in algebra, but I got an A in making records. So
yeah,
which one really counts?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd imagine, I certainly don't use algebra on a day-to-day basis, but, I've studied a whole lot of your playing and I do use that. And, you said, more of less, and a good case in point, I did a show back in September with the band that I toured with, back in the late 90s. We hadn't done a show in over a decade, and we got together to do a show. It's going to be fun. And one of the songs that we picked to play that meant a lot to all of us was Green River. And, we did a lot of our original music too, but Green River is one of those songs. It is just, the groove is a mile wide and a mile deep. And if you do it right, you will not play a drum fill in that song. I mean,
that's right. There are little things now. Just to go back to what we were talking about, I do a few little moves with the kick drum. There are some parts in there that move sections along ever so subtly. It's and put that thing on and put a real close listen to the low end in there, and you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a couple of little things that I do in there and spots, but it's so simple that you like you say you don't do a fill. Another one is Bad Moon.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's just you're there to propel that song along.
Exactly.
It's just, and I think it goes back, you said I grew up listening to top 40 radio. Well, at the time that you hadn't become a professional musician, I would venture a guess that top 40 radio, probably a great percentage of that would have been the great Hal Blaine playing drums.
That's funny you said that. I'm looking at a picture of Hal right now, rereading his book. What a guy! I mean, I am very fortunate to have been able to get an autograph picture from Hal. And, he's just such a gentleman, and, he gives everybody credit, every drummer on the planet. He says, that's what inspires me. I listen to you guys, meaning drummers in general, and that's what inspires me. And what a cool thing!
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, wow. How many top 40 records did he play on? I mean, I want to say it was like probably north of 500. I mean,
pretty darn close.
So, you're listening to that stuff, and Hal was, an exercise in this is how you lay down a drum track for a hit. That's all I do all day long, every day.
Yeah.
So that had to be ingrained in you a little bit.
Well, I would say that theory. Yeah, he's a lot better at it than I am, but that theory. When you're playing something and there's a melody that has a certain tempo, there's a melody that has a certain chord progression that needs a little love, and it's right in front of you. It's right in front of you, and a lot of guys will rip their hair out and go, what am I going to put in here? You just close your eyes and play it without thinking about it, and that's a good way to practice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the other thing that a lot of times gets glossed over, especially in the CCR catalog, is the fact that you and Stu, I don't know if it was just you guys were meant to play together or if it's something you learned to do together or what. But, I'm going to go on record right now and say one of the top 5 rhythm sections of all time, in my opinion, because you guys did exactly what the song needed and you worked together as a unit to get it done.
Well, thanks for the compliment.
You're welcome, but I mean it. I mean, if you need a rhythm section to come in and give the song exactly what it needs and make it concrete and groovy and danceable and all that stuff, Stu and Doug are your guys. That's my opinion.
Wow. Well, it's just I'll say it's a labor of love. It's what we've done since we were 13 years of age, and we learned to play our instruments together and learn to record at the same time together as a unit. That means all 4 of us. And of course, the rhythm section has its particular and et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, what you have is a solid house with a solid foundation, and then all the way up to the top, to the roof, or the lead vocal. However you want to, work it out, so to speak. I'm trying to. I had a thought there that it's gone. That happens when you're 74 years old. Be ready for it when it comes. But.
Well, it happens to me at 42, so I'm already there. I'm catching up. The other thing that I think is that sometimes gets missed when people talk about, drumming and making these great records and all that stuff. People don't remember how much you guys were on the road in support of these things, and I can only imagine that in the late 60s, early 70s, it probably wasn't as comfortable as it is today to be on the road 150, 200 nights a year. What was it like to tour with CCR back in the day?
Well, we didn't make a lot of money playing live. But what we did do is we put a lot of good ideas into the bank. We would have suites. We'd get a bunch of suites, and in the middle would be what we call the party suite. And after a show, after we got back from the venue, all the guys, the guitar players had acoustic guitars, and I had a little practice pad set up with the 4-piece drum set and a hi-hat, and we would play acoustically. Of course, you couldn't play electric guitars in the hotel at midnight, or at any time really for that matter. So anyway, we would go in and play, and a lot of times we'd play old country standards, and play songs that we played in the clubs. But a lot of ideas would come out of those sessions. So when we finished our hour set, we didn't play very long. In the public part of the deal, but we would play for 3-4 hours, in the room, in the party room after the show.
Wow.
So, that's I sometimes forget about that, but that some really cool stuff has come out of those sessions, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it sounds like that you guys were, just workaholics, for lack of a better term.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, and I mean, obviously, the results speak for themselves, just millions upon millions of records sold, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And look, I don't want to put you on the spot, Doug, but, you mentioned, you're 74 years old. Do you ever stop and say, what is my legacy? What am I leaving behind? Or are you just too busy to think in those terms?
More so now than before. And, as you go from being a young guy to an older gentleman, shall we say? Just covering my ass there. I think especially now that the retirement, the R word is out there. I'm not gonna not be involved with music. I'm going from the performance side to the creative side. I've got a publishing company, and I've got several albums worth of material, and I'm going to have an album out next year, as a matter of fact. So watch out for that one.
Absolutely.
When it comes down the pike. As you just in general, life in general, you look, I got grandchildren. I've got, I've got a kid who's 51 years old,
Yeah.
The legacy, the way I have sort of figured that one out is when I go to the grocery store and I'm in there buying some beets or who knows what, and I hear one of the songs come on the radio, I go, our wish and dream when we were 13 years of age was to someday have our songs played on the radio.
Yeah.
Well, they've been playing them for 50 years, so that part of it's correct. And then to be able to have fans, multi-generational fans, that's kind of another part that, goes along with that radio play. There are so many age groups or slash generations that are in our, in the club, in the Creedence club. So, pop medium is the toughest test is the test of time. So in terms of the legacy, I think it's in place pretty well. And to your point, as I go down memory lane, I'm focusing more on the good things, the fun things, the little silly things that happen throughout the journey, and try to leave the dark side behind. And it's kind of hard to do that with the Star Wars movie coming out. I am your father. So
yeah,
Well,
and I think it's been well publicized that the business hurts relationships. Let's just say that, you know, you know, and I don't want to get into that. I really don't. But, you know, things happened, and, you know, let's just say this. You and Stu carried on, and you've left another legacy with a second project. You know, I mean, there are great, you know, revisited recordings that are out there, a great live album. And, you know, my wife and I talk sometimes, and, you know, I will never be, you know, at the caliber of musician, you know, where I can say, well, I've got, you know, 7 multi-platinum records or anything like that. And that's okay. But nobody ever remembers our live shows. You know, nobody, I think what I'm getting at is what you've recorded and committed to tape or hard drive or whatever the case may be. That stuff sticks around forever. And as you said, the catalog of stuff that CCR did is now still being played 50 years later. What does that say about the music? I mean, is it just timeless? Is that the way you would describe it?
Yes, and I've heard it described that way by a lot of different individuals, people from all walks of life. I hear that a lot. You know, after a show, you're meeting some fans, and you're chatting and said, you know, this music is timeless. I may beg to differ with you on that, because I'm a drummer, so there is time in there. And, you know, I've always got a joke for some. You know, I'm sort of famous for that.
Yeah.
Within the band, but you know, it's you shake your head. You know, to be part of something that has had a positive impact on millions of people's lives all over the world. People that don't even speak English, you know, have a connection. You know, the feeling of this music is real. I mean, it's, you know, it's our heart and soul, and carefully loved and worked. And it took a long time, 10 years for us to have our first hit. But, you know, we stayed true to a genre, and sometimes that's a little hard when, you know, everybody else is playing something different and they're laughing at you.
Yeah.
You know, but in the long run, you know, it really paid off in terms of, you know, we were right. You know, we were right. You know, and all those people that called us Boy Scouts of rock and roll or whatever, you know, the last laugh is a pretty good one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and, you know, I mean, I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but, you know, I've heard Creedence described as Southern rock, as Bayou rock, as, you know, boogie rock. I mean, seriously, I think to each individual listeners, they may say this song is blank. This song is a blank song, right? And they put in whatever adjective they want to use. You know, but I think that's what makes music, you know, as we say, timeless, is that it's so many different things to different people. And, you know, I joked with you the last time, you know, how did a bunch of kids from the Bay Area, you know, write so many great Bayou type songs? You know, I mean, everybody, a lot of people still think you guys are from Louisiana, for God's sakes.
True enough.
You know,
that's true. Well, we were good listeners. You know, we listened to the way I like, people say, call us, you know, all the expletives that you just did. Bayou rock, it's Southern rock, it's whatever. It's roots American music. So there's country in there, but it's roots country. It's Bakersfield. It's Buck Owens. And Merle Haggard. It's R&B, rhythm and blues, Howlin' Wolf, and you know, on and on and on and on. James Brown, all the great ones. That's roots American music. The jazz fits in there somewhere, but that's just not our thing. But it's roots music, and we tried to keep the root of that music as the guiding light for what we were going to do, and we find that simplification and really making each note count. I suppose. And it really works, but you have to be totally committed to it. I mean, totally committed to it. 10 years is a real commitment.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well,
took us. If I may, there's one thing I do want to bring up about the rhythm section. Don't forget old Tom Fogerty in there. He played some great rhythm guitar.
Yeah,
and didn't get any credit for it. And Tom was always there and had great ideas and kept a nice rhythm guitar in the mix. So
without
don't forget old Tom.
No. I will never forget Tom. It's just the four of you guys were such a unit, but you talked about American roots music, and I want to go down just a rabbit hole real quickly with you. The big thing now, there's this resurgence of roots music, and the industry calls it Americana, right? And for about the last, dare I say 10 years, maybe 15, that's been a real hot thing. Do you hear some of that new stuff that comes out and think in the back of your mind, wow, this guy or girl really listened to a lot of CCR as a child? I mean, do you ever have those moments?
I don't really think that I've thought about it much that way. Usually if it's something different, I'm listening to see what ideas they come up with. So I'm listening from I'm listening from the back door, shall we say.
Yeah, sure. Who are some of the artists that you listen to, younger artists? What is, what's a typical day for you? Do you listen to older music or do you listen to all music? What is your lifeblood these days?
Well, a lot of different music. If it's good, it's good. I mean, that I guess is the bottom line. I love classical music as well, and there are certain times that it's very comforting. It's pretty hard to beat the late '60s, early '70s. For me, not because we're in there, but because there are so many great bands that were in there, bands that would not be forgotten if they weren't on the charts. So,
so to speak, right?
Yeah. So country, depending on where it's at. Now, I'm seeing a lot of country artists slipping into the rap zone, or their version of it, which I find very interesting. Billy Ray Cyrus it comes to mind.
Yeah.
It's music is many things, and we just picked a genre for us that we've I would say pretty close to mastered. You never really truly finish it or complete the cycle unless you're pushing daisies. So
that's a good point.
Try to keep an open mind, but I find a real. I hate to say it, but there's some pretty boring stuff that's out there that's new, and I try to listen to some of it and see where it's going, and I don't hear or feel a heartbeat, and that's a little disconcerting, but at the same time, there's always those lulls, where something's going to hit and it's going to take off, and it's going to be a good ride for a while, and then the next cycle will happen. We're kind of in that valley of fatigue for me, for a lot of what's happening pop wise, certainly.
Yes, I agree, and this is a business that is. You said it very well. It's notorious for the next big thing comes along and then everybody emulates that next big thing. Right. And, I think we're due for, that seismic shift in, popular music and rock music. It's just a different game now. I mean, it really is. It used to be all about the album and getting out and selling albums. Now it's about, you do the album and hope people stream it on the internet or whatever, and you make all your money from touring, so it's completely different than it was, even 25, 30 years ago. We are due for a change, no doubt about it.
Well, you're not going to make any money with streaming. And as technology changes, I find this to be true. Usually, the quality of the music takes a hit for the record company or whomever has a new way or a quicker way or a more expedient way to sell something. Instead of, this is going to make it sound better. And that's the driving force that it should be.
Yeah.
And, it's always been that way. But the poor artists, I've never understood why people think they should get their music free. I mean, would you go to work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, and at the end of that week come up and say, I'm volunteering my resources and my gifts for everyone to take away from me and leave me with no groceries. It's tough out there.
Yeah,
I would not want to be out there now.
Well, it is tough
as a new artist.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult, and not only the getting your music into people's hands. There's a long running joke on the show about certain bars, clubs, whatever you want to say. They're paying the exact same thing for an artist to come do a gig today that they were paying in the early 70s. And when you think about that, it's because somebody else will go play that gig for whatever amount of money the club or the bar throws at them. They can always get a band for $100, $200. And, if you say, well, we need 1,000 to play there Saturday night, they're like, yeah, we'll pass. It's real simple. I'll get somebody else.
It's and how, as the venues shrink and they do, because now, you used to be able to make a living, selling records, not streaming records. And there used to be record stores where you could go down and to see the art that was involved in the covers. Our first album, the artwork on the first Creedence album, my wife did. And 2 years ago, I think, it got into the De Young Museum. And to see. How about that? That's pretty cool.
Well, it's an afterthought now. Album art is just an afterthought. I mean, it's just we need a cover. Okay, that looks cool. Let's do it. It's
and how many people will see that cover? Maybe 10% of the people that buy that music.
That's exactly right. So times
maybe.
Yeah, maybe if you're lucky. So times are definitely different. There's no doubt about it. Doug, I want to be respectful of your time. I want to thank you once again for coming back and revisiting with us here on the Drum Shuffle. It's just been such an honor and a privilege to get to talk to you a few times and for you to share your drumming journey and stories with all of us. It just means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to our listeners as well, because, you were in arguably one of the biggest bands in history, and you guys had such a prolific output. But I do want to say right now, you said you will have a new album next year, please come back and talk to us about that once it hits the streets. Will you do that?
I will absolutely do that.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. Doug, I'll give you the final word. Anything you want to share with our listeners out there, any good advice or a funny story, whatever you want. You get the last word here.
Well, for all my drummer brothers and sisters out there and the world, God bless us, because there's only one of us, and we've got all these guitar players to deal with. Holy crap.
That is fantastic. But it's so true. It really
tongue in
is.
cheek, of course, tongue in cheek, but
yes.
There's always a little light of truth in all of that. No, I've been fortunate to be involved with guys that are really talented so for so many years, and to be able to work and play music with the great players that I've been surrounded with. It's an honor for me to up on that, and on that stage, not too much longer, I might add, but I'll still I'll be doing a lot of writing. As I said, I'll go from the performance side to the creative side again, and I'm looking forward to it. The road can be a pretty brutal thing, and my body is a combination from playing a style and drums and then doing all the traveling. I won't miss the traveling. I'll miss the shows. Of course, that's always the plum, and I'll miss the fans and the boys and the band and all those things. But I'll have thanks to you for doing what you're doing, because we're getting the word out to our as I said, our brothers and sisters that play on the skins and take the butt of jokes from guys that that have stringed instruments, shall we say? But it's all part of it. It's all part of it. It's fun, and I will miss it, but I'm ready for a change, and I also have some grandkids I need to spend some more time with. I missed a lot of birthdays over the years.
Yeah.
And my wife will be happy to have me around, I think.
I'll interject at this point that if you go back out on the road next year, we'll know that she wasn't really happy to have you around the house.
Amen, brother.
So we will hope for the best there. But Doug, I just want to thank you so much for doing this, and you guys enjoy the last few shows with Revisited, and I look forward to having you back when you get your record together next year. I can't wait to hear it. Honestly, I think we'll be glad to shed some light on that on this program anytime you'd like, sir. Well,
I'll tell you what I'll do. If you promise, not because it's not out, and I'll send you a copy of it, but it's for your ears only. I mean, you can play it for people if you want to do that, but not on the air or anything like that. Well, and I don't do that very often. Quite frankly, but I know that you're sincere in your appreciation for what I do, and this is something when it's old. I mean, it's stuff that I've done a long time ago that I found, and that's when I could sing, and that's when I was doing a lot of writing. I'm the writer or co-writer on all 11 songs. And and there's some pretty good grooves, drumming things that will probably surprise you. because I was stepping out with this thing, doing some things that, having fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's very kind of you, and I appreciate that. And that will give me the opportunity to know what to ask about when we get you back once it's released, right?
Right, that's right. What's your address?
I'll get that to you when we wrap up the interview. I'll tell you exactly where to send that to. I don't want the angry mobs with torches and pitchforks showing up here. So.
Oh yeah, no, we don't want that.
So, Doug, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it, and we'll talk to you real soon. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir. All right, guys and girls, that's going to wrap up episode 84 of the Drum Shuffle. What an absolute honor for me to be able to have Doug Clifford back on the show. And as you heard there kind of towards the end, he offered to send me his new, as of yet unreleased record. And I'm a man of my word. I'm not going to give too much away here, but we've talked a few times since the interview, and I have received that. And wow, man, let me just tell you, I knew Doug Clifford could sing. I did not know he could sing like that. So keep your ears peeled, because we will absolutely have Doug back to talk about this fantastic record when he is ready to put that out on the street. I can't thank each of you enough for tuning in each and every week to the show. We simply can't do it without each and every one of you. As always, I'm going to ask you to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you use to listen in. We do answer every single email that we receive here at the Drum Shuffle. The Drum Shuffle Podcast at gmail.com is our email address. TheDrumShuffle.com is our website. And of course, you can always find more information on me over at JamieEads.com. While you're there, click on those social media links, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We do try to be active on social media throughout the week. You can follow us in those spots as well. Also, every single episode of the Drum Shuffle is available on YouTube. My channel is Jamie Eads Drummer, so you can always check it out over at YouTube as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I just simply can't do it without each and every one of you. Many, many thanks to my guest, Doug Clifford, for coming back on the show. So until next time, may your head stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers, everybody.